The discovery of fire, the invention of the wheel, Gutenberg's printing press, sports cars being reborn as crossovers. Undoubtedly mankind's greatest achievements. It's seemingly a new trend now. An automaker comes out with a new crossover and excitedly tells us how it reuses a fabled name from their past catalog. What was previously a famous sports car or a beefy and chunky off-roader is now a crossover. Why though? The automotive industry goes through trends constantly, sure, but this one seems a bit more strange. Different crossovers and SUVs are comfortably the best-selling types of cars right now, so it's hardly like they're in need of garnering attention. Has this trend been created with the sole purpose of pissing off the most vital demographic of car buyers? Enthusiasts on the internet? Well, no, actually, believe it or not, but that isn't the case here. In fact, let's not pretend that this is even a new phenomenon, because it really isn't. Often called the golden age of muscle cars, the 1960s could be described as the golden age of muscle cars. At the peak of these horsepower wars, every American manufacturer was in the midst of a race to see who could cram the most horses into a large V8, then stick that V8 in an intermediate body, and finally sell it at a price even the common man could afford. These fantastic machines were sports cars, in every sense of the word, just more so focused on pure power than handling prowess. This war went on for, frankly, a short amount of time. If you've seen a Ned's Auto Reviews video for even just 2 minutes, you know what came next. That's right, the 70s. The oil crisis induced changes, including stricter fuel economy and emission standards, the removal of lead from fuel, and skyrocketing insurance prices for these cars essentially ended the original era of muscle cars, and by 1974 they were all but dead. Except that a few of these sports car nameplates managed to live on, but as plush, leather-filled, personally luxury coupes with absolutely no regard for sportiness. In 1972, the top-of-the-line 5.8-liter V8 in the Mercury Cougar gave a net output of 266 horsepower. Just 2 years later, the top-of-the-line 7.5-liter V8 in the 1974 Cougar put out 220 horsepower. It didn't have any sporting aspirations anymore. It had gone from a sports car to a land yacht. And it was the same story for many models, against the wishes of any and all automotive enthusiasts. Fast forward a decade or so, and some classic nameplates were reborn as front-wheel drive compact hatchbacks. You get what I mean, right? This is nothing new. So the question is now, why is this happening again? SUVs and crossovers are the best-selling cars right now. Everybody's buying them already. Well, that's the thing. That's exactly why automakers are doing this name stuff. Nissan's Skyline crossover from the 2000s precedes all of it, and I'll talk about it later. Instead, it's Mitsubishi and the Eclipse Cross that became the genesis and opened the floodgates to this, showing to all the other car makers that, hey, you can do this! Rumors had been floating around for a while that Mitsubishi would stick the Eclipse name on a crossover, and when it was officially confirmed in early 2017, oh boy, was there anyone who liked this decision? Countless articles, comments, discussions online, all making fun of this naming decision. Somebody probably cried because of this. And, you know, that was very much the intention. What is the Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross in isolation? There's only so much you could say about the car itself, and I've just about said it all. It's otherwise a completely bland, forgettable crossover that doesn't particularly excel at anything when compared to its rivals. So, how do you make it stand out? How do you make sure people even know that it exists? Exactly. The name of the car is essentially a marketing stunt, a way to get attention, and attention they got. If I asked you to name a model Mitsubishi currently sells, I'd bet the Eclipse Cross would pop into your head quite quickly, which simply wouldn't be the case if it were called X-Cross or something. Seemingly at the same time, Mitsubishi was getting flack for naming their new small crossover after a front-wheel drive 4-seater sports coupe, Ford was hard at work developing their new small crossover named after a front-wheel drive 4-seater sports coupe, the Puma. Both Ford and Mitsubishi seem to have basically the same idea at basically the same time, which is interesting. With that said, Ford went about it in a much better way, I'd say. For one, the bigger Kuga had already set a bit of a precedent, as that one seems to be named after the Ford Cougar coupe from the 90s. Possibly? Probably? Much more importantly, however, Ford didn't simply slap an existing name on a new crossover they were developing. The 2019 Puma was clearly designed with the nameplate in mind, featuring a design very much reminiscent of the original Puma Coupe A. Not only that, both cars are subcompact, front-wheel drives based on a Ford Fiesta platform. I'd say that's actually a good effort from Ford, which just begs the question, why? Nobody remembers the Puma. It was a great car, don't get me wrong, but not a single soul would buy the new one because the headlights remind them of this old Ford that nobody bought. I think the Ford Motor Company was more successful with the strategy the second time around, which means that yes, I'm going to defend the Mustang Mach-E. You see, Ford was faced with a tough assignment. They had to make an electric car. At this point, plenty of manufacturers were in the process of introducing an electric vehicle into their lineups, usually a premium crossover, in a direct answer to Tesla. As in the public's eyes, if you wanted an electric car, you bought a Tesla. That was that. How do you combat this? Well, you gotta ask yourself, why were people buying Teslas? The range, the price, the technology, sure. But I think, above all else, they were buying a Tesla. The name had prestige around it. It had cultivated an image of a cool, futuristic piece of technology, pretty much like the automotive equivalent of an Apple product. At this stage, Ford could have just as easily launched the, I don't know, especially good, and see if people would bite. Instead, they were smart about it. They took a nameplate that every single American was already familiar with, and one that was already very aspirational. Mom, dad, the kids, the dog, everybody wants a Mustang. So when Ford comes out with a practical Mustang that the whole family can fit inside of, that's when the Stevensons might actually forget about Tesla and buy Ford's Mach-E instead. And not just due to the name either, no. Ford's designers exceeded in one crucial aspect. This Mustang crossover looks like what a Mustang would look like if it were a crossover. It's clearly inspired by the actual muscle car and takes on the nameplate as an extension of the Mustang lineup, instead of pretending to be a successor to the pony car lineage. Perhaps you've hated every single word that's come out of my mouth, I understand. But the fact is that Ford succeeded in making America's best-selling electric car not sold by an anti-Semite. Instead, it just bears the name of one. After months and months of discourse and arguments over the Mustang Mach-E's name, everyone, both EV buyers and haters, knew about this car. This undoubtedly played a part in its popularity. There are now so many examples of this phenomenon, I can't be bothered to dive into each and every one in detail. Instead, let's rank all of them on the official Corsicar Corsi scale of Corsi sensibleness. Each car has the possibility of fitting into one of three categories. Yeah, I get it. For the ones which present their case well why they reused a fabled nameplate for a modern crossover, and as such, you'd probably have a hard time explaining how the automaker committed heresy. Then we've got whatever, you know, just whatever. And the final category is stupid. The Nissan Skyline crossover, known to most of you as the Infiniti EX, is, in the way I see it, a precursor to all of these recycled namesakes we see today. It's not actually part of the trend because, well, it didn't replace the Skyline outright. It was just the Nissan Skyline crossover sitting alongside the regular sedan. It's got some great guts though, rear or all-wheel drive, the power plant from a 370Z, and literally no space in the back for actual human beings. It's basically a sports car in every aspect aside from its height. Yeah, I get it. Now, unlike that Nissan, the Eclipse Cross has nothing to back its name up, despite the fact they were keen on at least making it look sporty. But it's not that bad when you realize this isn't just an Eclipse, it's an Eclipse Cross. A very important addition to its name. The implication being there could still be a regular coupe Eclipse sold alongside it. That's never gonna happen, but it's something to think about. Whatever. GM resurrected the Blazer name and slapped it on a crossover where 95% of them leave the factory to go straight to a Hertz parking lot. Approximately 2 seconds later, Ford resurrected the Bronco name and has actually managed to sell a few of those. Stupid. Terrible even. This is a bad idea, because the RSX name is the most forgettable nameplate in human history, and I think most people completely forgot about it or just called it an Integra until the headlines about the new one started rolling in. They really should have picked a better name than TSRX. Stupid. Based on a Fiesta with front-wheel drive and bulbous headlights, they're literally the same. Excellent job. Terrible job. 90% of people who drove Caprice back in the day are dead. So this nostalgia bait is aimed at people who will be unable to walk into a Ford dealer in the near future. And it's ugly. Stupid. It's the small Alpha. It's the perfect name. Plus, you didn't even remember that the Junior nameplate originated in the 60s. It's a perfectly fine use case here. I can't see anyone having the energy to be angry about this evolution. Like the Blazer, the Frontera wasn't a sports car but a beefy body-on-frame SUV, which also happened to be a cynical General Motors corporate rebadge of an existing Isuzu. The new Frontera is a car. I'm certain of that. With the original Frontera's legacy of being a pretty standard, maybe a bit poorly built, completely average SUV, the new one doesn't really need to live up to much. It's just whatever. The Tata Sierra was launched in 1991, first lifestyle SUV of India, Telco line. It's basically the same story as is with the Frontera. How dare they? And there we have it. You now know what your opinion should be. The following people know what they did. Royce, Scuderia, Josh, Psyduck, Chisel, All American Cars, Milk, Cleveland, Ayo Jeffrey, Chargness, Sinan Neal, Garrett Borden, Exorcist, Carter Savati, Virus, Josh Don't Know, Axo754, Richeria Piana Nava, Axon Coldwood, Dogra149, Richard S, Chaffers Doctus, Shelby Cobra, Andrew Choikov, SMG4 Characters, Nirmay Shah, Nev, Nico, Fiat Color, Leo Van Ponte, Lenyan, Clocky T-Girl, Carlo Gondik, Chow Chat Chun, 93 Farar, Beans, LGXN7, Alessandro Suarez, Michal Kvechin, and Alexander.